They did was they dehumanised him at that point, being an individual, and then found out what his humanity is, decided to put him into the box as high risk as an individual, and left him back where he was in Austria or wherever he was at the time. That is called preventative dehumanising to then get who the human is. Absolutely. They got a human, but they decide it's not a human, they want it out.
Content over everything!
Why did they bring it? Now, you might agree or disagree whether he should be here or not. Doesn't matter. The state decided he was a risk to Britain, and therefore they did preventative measures, which was exclusion. Same thing they should do with this girl.
Just on a quick one, just before I return to this.
Do you see
one.
that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think, like you said, I'm going to disagree on the terminology humanist, because I think exploring someone's background past or whatever, or ideology,
like you said, I might be going deep, but it's the way a profiler will work you out. It's a way a professional profiler at an airport will work you out. They have to dehumanise you first to make you human, if that makes sense.
Right. But
there's a reason.
When we were talking about the preventive measure, etc., Martin Selma is a grown man. Right? So when we were talking about waiting points earlier, there was a significant waiting opportunity for Martin Selma to, supposedly articulate his point, as opposed to make it so extreme. This is a young girl. I would argue that her waiting point is significantly lesser to Martin Selma's. That's a big problem. Again, I agree with you. That's the thing.
If you are, goodbye.
But this is the thing. This is the thing about humanizing and dehumanizing, isn't it? Like, there are middle points that I would like to explore, and then some people wouldn't like to explore. So I definitely agree with that. But do you mind if I quickly just finish on this point? Just finish on this point. So we've highlighted the fact that you can't give me any differences or any solid differences that you can spout between the two individuals. I'll give you some differences that I see. Give me 2 seconds. We'll give you some differences that I see between, say, the far right and this young girl. A lot of the far right, most of their demographic are fairly middle-aged men. That is the supposed demographic, right? They now have a young following, but the most of it is middle-aged men. A lot of the people flying to Syria, these are young people who haven't learned about the world, right? So, as I was saying to this gentleman here, do we owe them that? This is a question, it's not something I agree with. Do we owe them the benefit of the doubt that they haven't had that significant waiting period to see otherwise? Because a lot of these people, they grow up in Islamic homes. So what they hear is that their homeland is under attack, and that's all they see, right? My question was, not even my question, my statement was that I find it brave that certain young children will give up all the privileges they have here to fly to somewhere unknown.
To me, ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, absolutely. But to fly to somewhere unknown, to fight for a cause that they believe in, whether it's right or wrong, the intentions are there, right? Now, whether you agree they should come back or whatever, I agree with you that it poses a big risk. So it's not really worth it.
We've got to be a state. As a state, we've got to profile this and go, this is too high risk. I'm sorry, you're not entering Britain.
Absolutely.
And we have to dehumanize. That's why I meant by dehumanising. Forget our story.
Absolutely.
It's almost like we're being cold and going, we don't care about your story. You are a risk to Britain. Hang on a minute. But to get to that point, the profiler's got to make that decision. Yeah. So we as a state become the profiler. That's what's happening here. That's why you've got a petition now of nearly 400,000 people saying they don't want her to come back.
Absolutely.
Because the country's deciding as a profiler she's high risk to Britain. And the only way we're going to know, that she isn't a high risk, we've got to wait for her one day to die naturally to make sure she hasn't blown herself up and killed other people. And then we'll know the prevention was right. You'll never know until what you're trying to prevent doesn't happen.
I think
that's a security man's nightmare every day of the week.
Surely, as a Christian nation, they should grant her the grace to be able to establish that.
She's too much of a risk to this country. As far as I'm concerned, you don't come back to this country, you're a risk.
No,
the profiler. No, you profile her. So, any country will profile who's coming in. And I understand what you're saying, but forget Christianity, forget all this. I have to dehumanise this woman. I don't care about her, but I'm going to be really horrible. I don't care about her baby. I don't care about her. I don't care about the child. No, I'll tell you why I don't. I have to do this. I don't care about the baby. I don't care about her.
The
reason I have to dehumanise her, and it's upsetting I have to dehumanise her, is to protect Britain. It's a security man's nightmare every day at an airport to decide who can travel and who can't travel. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. But they're quite happy to make me take my belt off to look for an explosive, and I'm a man who would never blow you up ever in my entire life. But they don't know my history, so what do? They dehumanise me for that moment to decide, take it off, sir. Well, I'm a good man. How do I know that, sir? Take it off. This is the issue.
We were talking about messages, sending messages earlier, but I think as politicians as well, they have to weigh a lot of the situations and have to come to a decision that kind of like they may not agree or disagree with, whichever one, but the pros outweigh the cons kind of thing. And I find myself agreeing with this gentleman in the sense that she should not necessarily be let back. But in a sense for me, it's that it sends a message to young children that you can't just fly across, join violent groups like this and then expect to come home, because it presents a massive risk.
It's still unfortunate that this young girl be the example that they're going to use.
I wish there was another way. There isn't another way for her. I wish there was. I don't see it.
But then how many will we save by stopping them going across?
See, prevention's a very difficult thing. We can only talk about prevention if nothing actually happens that we're worrying about. How do I know today? Like I said to this gentleman, I don't want to frighten him, but we're standing in London, in a major security city, of the world. We've got security agencies all over here, cameras everywhere. We don't know today they've stopped 4 things that we don't know that never happened to us, and therefore for them the prevention issue worked. So we only know when a plane arrives at a foreign destination and the people haven't exploded in that plane and everyone gets off, that the prevention worked. With this woman, we can't take this risk because she's publicly too high profile as a risk for my purposes, from my point of view. So my view, I'm not on the fence, don't let her back. That's it.
But I still believe as a British citizen, she is entitled to basic human rights, to be able to work with her. If
so
she
is it
has
swanging
been
at me?
Well, that's the way that is. That's
am I upset I've got to talk about her like this?
Because she is a child who has been radicalised to the point that she has been prepared to leave this nation where she has privileges here to go to a war-torn country.
But I've got to safeguard this country, and if you safeguard this country,
that's not a human right to go abroad and fight in
you
war.
safeguard the country.
What I'm saying is, if she's left, that we have as a
I'm just telling you, when you go, do you fly across the world?
We have to protect these first.
Have you ever been asked to take your shoes off and had your belt taken off? Well, usually when you go through an airport, you'll find they ask everybody to take their belt off and the shoes. Hang on a minute. Everywhere you go in the world. So if you do that, I mean, I went out to the airport last week because I go to Europe a lot. They even put my toothpaste through a special thing to see if I didn't have Semtex in there. Hang on a minute, I'm a man who wouldn't know how to blow someone up even if I really had to do it. The issue is I'm no risk, but they didn't trust me at that moment, did they?
You know that's never worked. That's never stopped an actual terrorist attack.
It has stopped a lot of things, I can assure you.
Those measures have never stopped.
The issue is, for example, right? Forget the liquids thing. I'm not talking about airport liquids. I'm talking about general why we do preventative measures. What I'm talking about, there are reasons, because of other reasons, why we take our belts off. There are reasons why we take our shoes off. We've had shoe bombers. We've had people who put explosives in belts.
There was no shoe bomber.
Hang on a minute, hang on. Look, I'm not discussing about, I'm talking about why we make preventative measures.
But I think
the issue is we're dehumanising. I'm going to dehumanise you for 10 minutes when I profile you, whether I think you should or should not go on that plane.
I think he raises a good point to it.
I don't think we understand.
The thing is, you can use the same logic to justify further and further extreme.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he raises a good point.
But she's not someone I've got to interview. We know her story, so therefore it's already done for us.
You start doing this at train stations then, right? Like say you the airports or whatever. Do you start saying like, to catch up a train from one city to another, we have to do full body search.
We don't.
To take off your shoes.
Your point is right. The point I'm trying to make. Can I be fair to your point? Because I understand your point, and it's not bad. But I understand. When I go on the tube, they don't always check me. I understand. And probably people watching. I realise. The issue is, I'm not saying that every time I go through an airport, a bomb's not going to go off somewhere. We've proven that happens. What you'll never know by preventative security is what actually has been prevented, because it's never explained. What I'm trying to say to you is, hang on. The only way I know that you have been prevented from being killed today is when you go to bed safely tonight. And therefore, someone might have prevented you in the London system from dying today. You don't even know. Because, hang on a minute, because of that, we have various systems. Some are not obvious to you, and others are clearly at airports are, and at certain points. We are being asked as a nation to bring back a woman who clearly went of her own accord or whatever to a land, right, to go into what we would class, from our point of view, a barbaric system. Hang on a minute. She was part of that system. She got herself pregnant 3 times, lost 2 babies, got 1. Okay, on a human level, sad. I forget the sad. Is she a risk to Britain? Yes, because she could be someone so clearly, obviously, that could cause us damage. So we make a decision: X, you're not coming in.
But I feel like we missed the point that the gentleman raised, which was a really good point in the sense of the practicality of these measures and the actual what they actually
we don't know
how much do they stop
exactly,
and that's a big problem. Transparency should be something that we have. Now, what he said in terms of again, how do we know things have been stopped, and how do we know they're not using it to justify more and more creeping into privacy, etc. Blah blah blah. Right. I think he raises a good point, and just by allowing what you said in terms of like, these are provisions, they keep us safe. End of conversation. We don't really understand that that can be used later on to justify.
I'm going to be fair to you. I get your point and I get his point.
Yeah.
And your point was made.
Oh, it's his point. It's not my point.
No.
It's his point.
But I'll be fair. I did get that point. I wasn't ignoring it. I'm just being very honest with you as to why I want to block her.
That's fair enough.
What I'm saying to you is, today the system we're in isn't going to the nightly news today, for obvious reasons. Go, hello. Just going to go to the security services for tonight's update. We today filed 6 bomb blasts on the London Underground, Central Line, Metropolitan. They're not going to tell you, are they? The reason they're not going to tell you is for obvious reasons. We're not discussing that type of prevention here. We're talking about a person who's now become an international news story, who has a profile that any profiler in the world, at any entry point in the world, is going to be really worried about. So we have to make a decision as a country. So the country's beginning to petition saying we don't want her for what I personally think, you may disagree with me and I respect you for disagreeing with me, for genuinely security preventative. So unfortunately, well, the lady's gone now, but the lady made a good point. As a British citizen, I'm actually a humanitarian person. It's upsetting I've got to talk about this lady in this way, but I'm going to have to dehumanise it to protect the rest of us and say, I'm sorry, young 19-year-old lady with an unfortunate story, you're too high a risk for me, don't come back here.
Can I just
That's the way it is. I'm profiling
you stand on this on other issues of the same kind of thing? Like, are you fine with having every message you send, every phone call you listen, you make, surveyed all the time if it's going to stop terrorist attacks?
We don't know what's going on now.
It is going on.
We don't know.
But is that something you're comfortable with?
It probably is going on.
Edward Snowden made it very clear, yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
Right.
Are you fine
the
with
intelligence services around the world, it always makes me laugh when I come here and everybody generalises what they've read on Google about MI5 and MI6. It always makes me laugh. The international community is every country in the world. If I shock you today, the Israelis, the pariah, the great pariah conversation here, will be talking to their Pakistani counterparts today about potential terrorist risks under the Egmont Agreement. 150 countries worldwide all are under it. The world of intelligence is that way because it doesn't go with the narrative that we always need. The reason is humanity eventually does kick in here. And if an Israeli Shin Bet Mossad person today knows that there's a bomb going to go off in Karachi, those people in Karachi are going to be informed. If they found it out, vice versa, it happens. So there is cooperation behind it. But I get this guy's point. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could all be open with an update every night on what we foiled? That would be ridiculous. This is not the argument. This isn't the argument we're having here. We're talking about a person who's clearly on a world profile.
Can you just tell me?
We wouldn't have Pearl Harbor if we had more transparency.
What would be the negative effect of, like, I'm just seriously curious, of saying, we foiled a plot on the underground? Is it because that spreads?
It's the bragging. It's the bragging as well, right? Okay, there's two very good questions.
Why would you not do that?
That's a brilliant question. It's a good question because it's a very, very, very good question. Because if you look at it both ways, you're right. There's two answers to this without staying on them. Firstly, why would you want to give away the fact you've done this? Secondly, human nature. If you've got a security service every day bragging about what it's prevented, makes the hardened person who wants to achieve something find every way round to show they could get through that system.
Could also deter.
And do it in a way, yes. So that's why I'm sitting on the fence on this one. It can be a deterrent, but it can also act against that by spurring them on to do it, because it becomes bragging. You know what happens? If I come to you and brag about who I am and you brag about who you are, I might try, I'm going to have to outdo him now and all that. Do you understand? That's what I'm trying to say.
Well,
it's human nature.
I was going to say that when this gentleman talks about like being transparent, I don't think he means like we're going to tell you the methods and the kind of techniques that we use, because no one would do that, right?
Yeah.
To create a firewall and then post the the schematics for your firewall. It's completely stupid, because then people can learn how to override it. I think what he's simply saying is that knowing that certain plots were foiled without further detail would help to reassure us that the practices that they're putting in place justify
each
the
year
need.
the security services, who are fairly transparent in this country, funnily enough, do issue that and say we foiled X number of plots. But I suppose it's where do we go with that? Do we tell you we foiled 200 plots in London this year, or do we tell you every detail of it is? To me, I'd rather just say, all right, tell us generally.
But I'd rather know a little bit more, because like we foiled 200 plots. You know, someone burnt their toast an immigrant lady burned her toast, and the police had to come over because the neighbour thought she was trying to burn down her house. You need to know what classifies as a terrorist
but they would know that. So what I'm saying, the security service, it would have to be issued by the government. So the security service, the head of the security service, or the Home Secretary will stand up in the Commons, because this is the way it's got to do. You won't see M and C and all those people. They ain't going to come. And she'll go, I'm very proud to say that we've averted 250 potential terrorist attacks. You've got to believe her whether she's telling the truth or not. And when you go and try and probe it, you're going to get the walls of the security service. The reason is we have a security service is for us actually not to know they helped us out today. Going back to what this original debate was about, I think your points are absolutely genuine. Really, I think. Well, I now get where you're coming from. I almost go with it. But the problem we've got is this is a high-profile international news story, where the last thing we want to do in the back of our minds is go, lovely Britain, we're a lovely, which we are, a kind country, let her in. And 2 years down the line, she's done something, it becomes a national news story. Now, it may never happen. But if it does,
you're saying the optics
we haven't done
more,
the preventative
right?
job. We knew the risks.
Then you're saying the optics matter more. Like, oh no, people are going to think we're idiots if we let her in and then she has a bomb attack. Because the thing is, anyone here could commit a bomb attack.
Oh, I get that. But they're already here, but they're not an international news story, unless you want me to make them. But I'm saying, they might be because of him. But they're not an international news story. Do you understand? So I'm not debating whether you could be a risk. I don't know, mate, or him or me or anything. You don't know anything about me. You're taking me on face value. I'm not a risk to you, and I'm sure you're not to me. But this is an international person with a profile we know about.
Here's a question. Just to throw a spanner in there, right? We talk about how she's a current risk to the UK, and we're supposedly assuming that she hasn't really changed her mindset, that she's still of the same mindset.
That worries me even more.
If that was the case, then why didn't she do anything when she was over here? Is the question.
Well, she was only a child then. She went in love for this thing about the caliphate.
That's a good point. Like, my question is can someone? Do you think someone can ever recover? Say she spends, like, she gets asylum in France or something random like that. She spends like 20 years there, and she becomes an artist, and her profile is totally changed. It turns out she's totally forgiven. Do you let her in eventually, or are you saying that? Are you setting the precedent that, like, once you've done this, you can never get in, full stop? Because that's my problem. Like, I understand you say on this case we're not going to let her in, but if you're setting the precedent, like, if you go there, that's it, goodbye forever. Then that, to me, that's like giving up.
Can I go really deep on your answer? Just for a second.
Just a quick one. Point in case, Majid Nawaz was an extremist.
That's right. He's now classed
locked up in Egypt for a little while. Now he's presenter of LBC, and he's living a fairly moderate life.
I get that. Go on. Can I throw a spanner in here? Bit deep this, but work this out.
That's all right.
That woman at the moment is an asset to an intelligence agency. These people have been known to be turned round by going in with a foreign international agency. There's various ones you could probably come to mind, all different, from America to Israel to also that region. Could be Arab intel group, where she could be literally not brought back here, taken into their system, almost threatened that if you don't do, and by that threat you turn her life around, she does something good for the other side because of all the information she's got, helps that lot track down other people for preventative measures, and is reformed and disappears off into society somewhere.
How do we know?
So the answer to your question, you understand? There is always a possibility with anyone. The problem we got with this lady, to be fair,
young lady.
Let's call her a young lady. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about a young lady who's become an international news story where her whole history is clearly there to be seen. So here I am as a British citizen who believes in the safety of my nation, and I'm trying to be human about her, but going, she's too high a risk for us. How can we live with ourselves if she does something? We cannot take that chance. The only reason we know we're going to be right is the day she dies, an elderly woman, and never did anything more to us.
But the thing is, we don't know what she has done. That's the problem.
But there are people who probably do. I'm sure there are people.
I hope
why
so.
she's
I
not being
hope
let
so.
back in.
Say that again?
That's not why she's not being let back in.
That's my point.
Why is she not being let back in?
Because of the sort of hemorrhaging of a lot of young, mostly brown people.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. I think we're all approaching this as
deal
like
with the
this
agency
general
and they-
law.
they-
We don't tend to let people. No, this is a
Everyone's
specific
heard of
move
Yeah.
to counteract the trend of young brown people,
Absolutely.
mostly from London and Birmingham, going to Syria. So this is a specific law for a specific issue,
Yeah.
and that's why that was my whole point. It don't happen to the right because that shit don't happen anyway. It's a completely different situation on the right. The people from the right don't go and fight off in war zones.
They show up schools instead.
Do you know
What
what?
are we talking about? Are you talking about a British person who's gone to shoot up
No,
a school?
we're
then
talking about,
then apply to
again-
let back
again,
in.
if
That's
we-
why I'm saying these are rough analogies,
No,
and
no,
it's not exactly.
they're not rough
If
analogies.
anything does happen
No,
on the
wait.
yeah, because I haven't finished. If anything does happen on the right, it's not the same as her going to Syria. You can make the claim that they're the same, but they're clearly
Wait,
different.
why are they different?
He can't
Well,
give
no.
me any examples as to why they're
Okay, well, I'll invite you to give me an example. Give me some ideas of British people who have left Britain to fight in war zones for their own right-wing ideologies and then try to come back.
What about the troubles in
don't
Ireland?
happen.
I mean, there isn't an ISIS state for like
Thank
alt
you.
righters. They would build
Thank you.
they want to
So
build
why
it in
even make the
Germany.
Can I
comparison?
say something to you? The only point you
Why
haven't-
even make
you
the
haven't- you
comparison?
I'll
haven't-
ask you, what about the troubles in Ireland? Were there not people flying across the island to fight
Possibly,
for
yeah.
the UK?
And a lot of them maybe didn't.
And a lot of them were probably granted back?
Probably.
child
What's
with
this
troubles in
probably? I don't
No,
know. Do
they
you
were.
know?
They were.
They
They
probably.
were.
Who
They
knows?
were.
Every
How do you
Irish
know?
voice on the
How
train,
do
we
you
worry
know
about
that?
now.
Bro,
How silly is that now?
enough Irish people don't get let into the country. My mum's Irish, bro. Loads of people can't come
And
into
you
the
got
country.
blown up by the
So
IRA,
it's not
missed it
some.
by 3 minutes.
You're making this thing up
I'm
about
not
open
making it up.
borders to everyone else.
I'm not making it up.
No,
I'm not
that's
making it up.
another
Well, tell me,
No, I'm making
a
it up.
contemporary.
So I'll bring it back.
Fine, let's
I'll
bring it.
bring it
No,
back.
let's
I'll
bring it back to
the
modern.
narrative. I'll bring it back to the narrative.
What contemporary right-wing
I'll let
war
you finish
zone
again.
do British
Hang on a
people
minute.
go
Can
out
I
and
let you
say
fight?
finish
something?
again.
Can I
It don't
say
happen.
something?
I'll let
Can
you
I say
finish.
something
Give me
in
2
answer to your
seconds.
point?
That's all I'm going to say.
But if
Everyone
it's
knows it
violent-
don't
No,
happen.
no, no. I want to answer that
What
point.
doesn't happen?
Can I answer your point?
I'm confused.
How do
you
you
keep saying
know
it doesn't
what
happen. I
you
keep
don't
trying to
know
give you examples,
is
but you
secure-
keep
hang on,
dismissing
hang
them.
on.
Give me 2 seconds, just because I do need to be able to answer this. You keep dismissing them, right? You dismiss Andres Breivik. No worries.
We
No worries.
agree
No
on
worries.
the
No worries.
radicalization,
No worries.
which is similar, but the actual event of what occurred is not the same.
People
There's
have
no
been
fight
blocked
going off
coming
and
in here
fighting
for that
in
reason.
illegal wars for ideology.
Martin Selden's
It just
been
don't
blocked coming
look.
in.
It's a similar thing. I'll give
haven't.
you that. I'll at least give you that. It's similar, but
No. The point is
by
that
saying,
these
"Oh,
people-
why did it happen to these
No, no,
people
hang
and
on
not
a
these
minute.
people?" It's because it's qualitatively different.
Can I say one thing though?
Are you done?
There
That's all
are
I'm
people.
saying.
Can I just
Finish?
say- can I just say
Hopefully
one
it's
thing?
clear
finished?
for
Hey,
everyone.
listen,
Are
listen
you
to his
finished?
point.
Can I
He's
say my
addressing
point?
you.
There
Mind if
are
I-
people. No, this is very
Go ahead,
relevant
go
to
ahead,
him.
go ahead, go
This is
ahead.
in context.
Go ahead.
If it's not in context, I agree. The issue is, you said, what happens if someone's gone out for some right-wing ideology or whatever? There are many people who have been blocked coming back into this country or checked because the information has gathered that. So there are people who have been blocked for that reason. Martin Sen reviews, there are British people who've been brought back and then put into prisons because of what they've done abroad. No, but there are people who haven't always got away with it. That's what I'm trying to say.
The difference
Yeah,
maybe
that's
the difference
what I'm
maybe is
saying. Carry on,
that
sorry.
So
that
this-
normally those people committed crimes overseas. Am I right? Like normally those people would have committed crimes
Yes, they would
overseas.
have them on a
but
profile.
you know this law is basically like you don't have to commit a crime. You just have to go to this area. Like if you just go to this area, then that's
She didn't just
enough.
go to the area. She didn't go on holiday to Damascus and sat in a cafe. She's admitted that she went to Islamic State. She's not denying it.
I think
she
she did
admits
a-
she
she
saw
did- she did
heads
commit
in
a crime.
bins.
Okay,
She admits
she
she
did.
saw beheaded
Okay.
people's heads in the bins, and it didn't really phase
What was the
her.
crime?
I'll add to that.
Was
So
it-
basically, in the
She's a high
UK
risk.
government, there's
That's
a
the
list
end of
of
it.
illegal,
Dehumaniser.
forbidden groups, political groups.
Yeah.
Most of them are Islamic. There's like a few that are like
People have
eco,
been
left-wing warrior. You know them kind of people. They
Yeah,
blow up
Mark
like
Zelda,
experimentation
had,
facilities.
well,
Don't
this
have
was
it
completely
much.
different. We
They're
had,
illegal.
the pickup
So
artists.
if you
Had
publicly
one
align
of
with
the
them,
criminal
you fund them, or you have some
The
connection,
question
you're
question
committing a
is-
crime.
The question what I'm trying to say is,
she-
where is the harsh
It's not like ISIS ain't
clapback
illegal.
on
ISIS is
the
an outlawed
ideologies
thing.
for
So I
X,
think
Y,
she
and
committed
Z.
a crime in
She
that way.
can't
Okay, yeah.
answer.
I
Which
mean,
I'm
this
crime
trying
or
to
no
say.
crime, my point is
Yeah,
about.
very clear.
Yeah, no,
we
absolutely,
keep bringing it back to this
absolutely. Which
general
again, I think
understanding,
we
like,
absolutely agree.
this
For
applies
the sake
to all
of
people
security
committing
and in terms
crimes
of weighing
abroad.
it
No,
up, I
this
agree
is a
with you.
specific
Yeah,
thing
yeah, I agree.
about
The
young
is where
people
we
from
have
the
this
UK
conversation
fighting
and
for
what realm we
ISIS.
have the conversation
And it
in.
don't happen
So
on
I'm
the
gonna
right.
ask him again, what are the differences
I mean, I've got a
between
member
the
of my
two, which he
family.
can't
It don't
provide.
happen in any other
I've got a
ideology.
member of my
So have
family.
you given me any
I've got a member of-
differences?
You know,
there?
there's only one I can give an example of, is there was some young British man who went to fight for Ukrainian forces in eastern Ukraine. That's all I know.
But the only
and there was a
reason-
big debate about it as well. But because this country is so anti-Russia in many of its ways, maybe they got a softer sentence, or maybe they ain't at all. Yeah, but aside from that, give me examples of when people on the right, and I don't know if you said alt-right.
I'm waiting to
alt-right?
finish. I'm waiting to finish because I haven't had any time to get in.
I don't know if you said alt-right, but you said right.
So anyway,
and yes,
I just want to clarify one
like
thing.
I said, we'll
you have to
talk
admit, like, there's no war zones
on this, right? I want to summarise something because this has been an interesting conversation. Okay,
Thank you.
and the points are well made. I get it. I have someone in my family who is a profiler at an international airport. That's all I'm going to say.
right.
No, it's not what you think it is. It's somewhere else. I know what he's thinking, but it's not. It's not Israel. It's not Israel, by the way. It's somewhere else. Okay, but they're also where there's been security issues. Do you know what he tells me every time he rings me up? He's my nephew. I'll tell you that. He rings me up and he goes, "It terrifies me, this job." He says, "I only know I've done the job properly when we get a call that the plane has arrived at the other end and everyone's disembarked."
Yeah.
That's the point I was trying to make about prevention.
And again, I agree. I agree. In terms of
that doesn't mean anything though. It does. It means
see, there's a security culture that we have to prevent any possible attack, and to me that mindset is insane because that mindset can be used.
It means that therefore.
Yeah, but that attitude can be used to justify any amount of suppression of civil rights and human liberty. Like there's no extent to that. There's no extent.
You have to come into the real world to understand that these people
of course a
are doing a
is
job to get you there, and sometimes they'll make. And you know why it gets better? Because through the generations they've made mistakes and things have happened where they miss something. So can you imagine like what he feels like when he lets a plane go to Perth from London in Australia? He's got to wait 19 hours to find out that nothing went wrong with that flight. So that's a pressure of a profiler. It'd be interesting to have an actual profiler here talking in this debate, actually. Because
the thing is that they're filled with propaganda, in my opinion, because they're taught to believe that that's like the only way to solve crime.
I'm not going to sit on the fence, and I haven't. Mr. Camera and this gentleman, thank you for talking to me about it. I'm not sitting on the fence. I don't want to back for the reasons I've told you.
Fair enough. Awesome. I just want to find out. I want to find out the differences. No, I want to find out the differences, and I want to sell this once and for all. So you're saying that you want word from word, right? Word for word. Identical situation of someone flying across, right? After being radicalized and so on, so for their supposed belief or whatever, and not being let back, right? You want a word for word one. Or
let's see what you got.
Or would you like me?
No, because like I said, I admitted that some people have gone to Ukraine, and it's not the same. It's very similar. It's British people fighting in a sort of civil war type scenario, which doesn't really have anything to do with them apart from a shared ideology.
What about the Kurds?
That's why. Come there. Let's hear him. Let's hear the example.
So the Kurds are like it's a fairly left wing state. I mean, it used to be a nation before you guys, England, came along and divided up the Middle East and basically gave like a part of Kurdistan to like you gave a little bit to Iraq, you gave a little bit to Syria, and you gave a little bit to Turkey. Sure. And all these governments have been basically oppressing Kurds because they're a minority in these countries for all of time. Because Syria is a failed state now, in the north of Syria where Kurdish people live, there's a huge number of people there that are trying to fight ISIS. They're getting weapons from America currently. They're actually the main people that have fought ISIS and destroyed ISIS for the most part. Because they're like left-wing socialists, that's kind of their ideology. They've attracted a lot of people from America, Australia, and England. And like at the moment, that's not like you're fighting people. You're killing ISIS. You're not doing it for an official government. It's a rebel group. But you're going to be allowed back in because it's aligned with our political goals at the moment. We want to fight ISIS, but like 30 years ago, socialists were like the devil. So they would be we would be doing the same thing. We would be doing the same thing we're doing to ISIS fighters for fighting for them. So like you could extend this attitude to other groups, and that's what I'm uncomfortable with. Because if someone goes to fight for Kurdistan or Rojava, like, are they going to get the same treatment?
Because the Peshmerga is not an outlawed group in the UK.
Not yet, but
it's not. I mean, let's just stick to facts.
Not Peshmerga. Peshmerga illegal.
PKK is a terrorist organization, which is what the
Peshmerga is
YPG derives from.
So what's the PKK stand for?
people. It's the Turkish it's the Kurdish people in Turkey, and then they crossed the border into Syria and created the YPG, which isn't a terrorist organization. But as soon as it's not politically convenient for us anymore, it will be a terrorist organization.
Well, I don't know. I mean, do a lot of people from the left here go and fight for the PKK?
Yeah.
Take up arms?
It's quite a recent phenomenon since like maybe
I've
2016.
never heard of that.
Yeah, not for the PKK, but for the YPG in Syria, which is.
Oh, is that illegal?
It's not illegal. No,
it's not illegal.
The YPG is not a terrorist
Recently, a
organization.
young girl died in the Syria.
Yeah. It's quite.
Okay, well,
I don't know.
first of all, I don't hear much about it. But that's not to say anything. Maybe the numbers are high.
The numbers aren't high yet, but
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. But in any case, it's not an outlawed body. You know, if you go and fight for Boko Haram or ISIS or any of these types of bodies, and they don't let you back in, it's sort of rule of law. You've committed a crime by siding with one of these organizations. We're not going to let you back in. Now, because there's no right-wing or any sort of non-Islamic / eco-warrior outlawed ideology, according to the government, you probably would get let back in. But
again, the majority of things, the majority of plans foiled have been by the right wing. The majority of time taken up by the Secret Service is by the right wing, but yet we do not have certain certain legislations and certain things that do not stop these things from supposedly materializing. So I'll give you an example. Right? We're talking about supposedly this girl again, like I said, radicalized, goes over, makes a mistake, comes back or tries to come back, and we're very blunt. You're not coming back, so and so, X, Y, and Z. Cool, no problem. I agree with that. I haven't disagreed with that. My problem is, why do we never show this harsh treatment towards certain movements that are clearly not productive for society? The right wing has been proven to not be productive for society. I will give you an exact reason for that. I'll give you an exact reason for that. Most of the times we do hear about these school shootings in America, right? And there's a certain profile for a lot of these school shooters. Yes? A lot of these school shooters, they find solace and they find community within the internet.
Right.
A lot of them come from 4chan. We can't deny that, right?
Facts.
A lot of them spout on poll or whatever they call it, a lot of right-wing rhetoric. When a lot of this rhetoric is so commonplace, we actually allow them to get together within certain facilities to actually talk about it, have speaks about it, have Richard Spencer say certain things that actually dehumanize people so that other people feel like they're dispendable, right? I'm questioning, where is the harsh treatment that we are giving this young girl on the side of middle-aged right-wing men?
But you're trying to create an analogy again. I mean,
It's a parallel. It's not an analogy. It's a parallel. That's the difference.
Even that, if you're trying to claim that there's a parallel
I'm just saying, get the terminology
between
right,
someone who is from Britain of Bangladeshi descent who went to Syria to fight for ISIS, the same as Richard Spencer, who is not part of an outlawed
okay, we're not talking about Richard Spencer. We're talking about terrorists that do
he
things
brought
in the
up
name
him, for
of
example,
I can
and
tell
people
you,
like
Richard Spencer was associated with certain groups like the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys have now been marked as a terrorist group. Go on.
Fair enough.
Continue.
But the alt-right in general, I mean, 4chan isn't an outlawed.
Well, that's because you can't.
But you get me. Like, so the point is,
But he's more talking about the
there's not a
ethics
real
of it.
parallel. I mean,
There is. I'm just giving it. You're just failing to see the
He's
point.
talking
people
about
at
the
home can
ethics of it,
decide,
right?
yeah.
Like,
But
I'm sure that people can
your
can
measure,
decide.
like my measure is quite clear, yeah.
Your measure is you have a young girl
I'll tell you
who
my
has
measure.
after
People left the country.
You have a young girl who
Alright,
you
you
don't
can
know
tell
have
my
actually
measure.
done anything. You have a young girl who hasn't
my
actually done
measure,
anything.
though. Let me
We
say
have
what my
Thomas
measure
Mayer. We have Thomas Mayer, gentleman, killed an MP 2 years ago. That's one death that I can give you from the UK. Give me one death from this young lady.
Well, let me give you my measure, which was
Because right now we're associating her. We're associating.
Let me just
So I'm
do
gonna
my
wait.
thing.
Go on.
She was not let in because she aligned with an outlawed body, according to the British government.
Okay, so what he's arguing, we know he said this.
Wait, no, but let me just summarize everything, yeah?
Go on.
Second of all, I made the point that it's a specific law because of a recent trend where significant amounts of young men and women from the UK were going to fight in this specific war. Yeah? These are two measurements which no one can deny, and this is one of the measures that's been put in place.
Okay, but why do you extend that logic?
Because I'm showing you why there isn't.
He said this.
Absolutely.
But I'm showing you why there isn't a parallel. If you just let me continue, He said these groups have been proven to not be useful to society. I don't know what kind of a measurement that is. He made the point that Richard Spencer is offensive and things like that. I mean, look, you might not like these people as much as these people.
I don't care for them, but the Secret Service have told me that they spend the majority of their time looking at these individuals. So I don't know if you want to take it up with the Secret Service, take it up with the Secret Service.
So here's the thing.
I'm just reporting to you.
Did you hear what I reported to you? How there's a specific set of criteria to not let her in.
But this is brilliant. This is brilliant.
Okay, but we're doing this to stop terrorists.
But your proposed...
I was actually going to point... Oh, go on.
Yeah, no, you will.
No, go on.
Your proposed measurement for these right-wing people is just your dislike for them.
No, it's action. I've given you action.
They're not useful
to society.
You haven't given me action.
Can I say something, please?
To society.
No, that's not it.
That wasn't the reason.
School shootings are apparently useful to society.
I'm not arguing for their use of society.
You said you were going to finish. You didn't finish.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's taking me out of context.
Because you always interrupt. So do you want to wait for someone to actually finish?
You need to listen.
Apparently, school shootings are productive to society.
Who said that?
Apparently,
that? This is a
misogynist rhetoric is apparently productive to society.
Okay, so here's the thing. What you're doing is you're conflating law with ethics. Okay?
Absolutely.
You're saying that it's illegal. Can I just say something, please? You're saying that.
I'm waiting. Go on.
Can I please say something I've been wanting to say for a while? So you're conflating law with ethics. You're saying that because it's illegal for her to go, it's wrong, so she shouldn't be allowed back in. So what he's saying is that following that logic of ethics, you can then extend that and say, okay, more terrorist attacks in the United Kingdom happen by alt-right people, so we should have laws that say that certain types of hate speech are not allowed within our society and are punishable by prison or whatever, or the same treatment as the Islamic people. So you can extend that logic. What you're trying to do is to eliminate terror, and you can extend that same logic to use it on alt-right groups. It's like a natural extension of that ethical framework.
Furthermore, as well, there's people here who are British and born here who align with these movements, but it's the action of going over there, right, that criminally implicates.
A concrete connection to them.
So how does someone who's fighting something where they live supposed to be affected by that law? It's quite discriminatory.
But you're bringing up all these things that I've never said. You assume because I say one thing.
Wait, you're
no,
flicking from
that's
point
exactly
to point.
what you lot are doing.
Let's stay coherent.
Thank you, and listen to what I've actually said. Just because I disagree with him, it doesn't mean I agree with the opposite. And that's what you both.
We get it.
So why'd you do it?
We get it. You don't like actually being challenged. We get it. But we're trying to stay coherent and we're trying to stay on topic. We're trying to stay on topic. So
is that coherent?
He just
highlighted.
When did
I say high school shooters were useful?
Don't worry about that. That was a joke.
Don't worry.
That wasn't.
Cool. Say what you want. I won't worry. That's cool.
If you don't get humor, then that's not my problem.
Do you know what's really humorous? Do you know what they say? The only thing worse than no one clapping for you is one person. That's humorous, man.
I don't know, man. Husbands don't mind when it's just their wives clapping. Anyway, like we were saying.
I tried to conflate law and ethics. No, my original point from jump, was to tell you why this ain't the same as the right. And I've given you many reasons. And your argument remains. You're like, no, but they should be the same. They should be. I'm telling you facts. This is why they're not. That's that, man.
I think we're gonna leave it here just because his argument right now it's just like here to a very kind of like fundamental view. But I think, like you say, there's an ethics and there's a law. There's a big difference, but there's also a grey in between. And I think where it just comes down to this is the law and so on. So no, even the law understands that there's certain ethics and certain factors that they have to take into consideration. My girlfriend does law, and we deliberate law quite a bit. There's certain things within the law system that need quite a bit of changing, and that's why ethics. That's why
overthrow the rule of law because it don't work for you.
No, that's what you're saying. I don't overthrow a rule of law.
We create law to reflect the ethics of society.
Absolutely.
We can change the law. Like what you're doing is you're saying that law is absolutely correct. You're saying you said that when you said that it's wrong for them to come back. We shouldn't let them in because they worked for a terrorist organization. They committed it, which is therefore a crime, which is illegal. Therefore, it's bad. So you said it's bad because it's illegal. But that doesn't make sense because we can change the law if something's bad.
Bro, come
if
on,
something
have
isn't
some
bad.
nuance in your argument, and when you listen to
we're the only one who have nuance in this argument.
Do you think?
Yeah. Put it this way. If this was apartheid South Africa, and this was my homeland, I would fly out there and I would be labelled a terrorist. The same way Nelson Mandela was labelled a terrorist, later exonerated and made into a Nobel Peace Prize hero. So what we're trying to point out here is that...
Let the girl who is Nelson Mandela back into the country.
I'm just saying.
Good analogy
She could be.
again,
She
yeah.
could
She could be. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Let's just give it a go. Yeah. You never know. Now, let me tell you what we're talking about law. I never disagree that law shouldn't be changed. You're acting like I'm some defender of.
No, but it was a circular argument. You were saying it's wrong
Bro,
because
you
it's illegal.
never understand what I'm saying unless you listen.
Yeah. Sorry.
My opinions ain't in there or there. They're here. Wait for them to come out. Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm gonna catch you in a bit.
Yeah, that's that.
I'm gonna catch you in a
Next time
bit.
you gotta
I'm gonna
listen.
catch you in a bit.
Well, that's that, man. I ain't trying to repeat
Sorry,
myself
man.
100 times.
That's all right. That's all right.
Content over everything from your
Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
And he opposed it up until his death. Now, Corbyn himself, however, was interlinked with a group or a tendency that argued since about 2004-5 for what they call was another Europe is possible. That argument was adopted within the left of the Labour movement over a number of years, whereby they thought that by making alliances with other left-wing groups in Europe, they might be able to forge an alliance that could create an